Sarah, I just want to check and see if you can hear us. Okay, thank you. Test, 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 test.
The September 12th, 2023 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Alcoffer is present. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines is present. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley is present. Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew is present. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess is present. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Delahaney. Mr. Delahaney is present. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman is present. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier is present. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman is present. Mr. Hebert. Mr. Hebert is present. Ms. Hughes Smith. Ms. Hughes Smith is present. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns is present. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller is present. President Lamar. President Lamar is present. Mr. Long. Mr. Long is present. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe is present. Mr. Milne.
Present.
Mr. Milne is present. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris is present. Ms. Roman. Ms. Roman is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is present. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor is present. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons is present. Ms. Vecchio is excused. And Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson is present.
I would like to introduce the Reverend Todd Goodard from Rush United Methodist Church, who has been invited by Legislator Mill to lead us in a moment of prayer.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you pray with me? Creator of the cosmos, the genesis of life and health and breath, spirit of wind and sunlight and rain this evening, radiance of moon and stars. Come to your chosen and anointed Monroe County representatives assembled this evening, leaders of diverse faith, cultures, and values. Visit them with your spirit and vision of direction, conviction, and power. Impart voice to speak for the voiceless, repair for the broken, hospitality to welcome visitors, neighbors, and friends, healing for all who are addicted, harmed, or grieved, support for widows and children, the homeless and the aged, justice fairly enforced, and equal opportunity for all. By the same measure of grace afforded to me, prosper our people, increase our gratitude, deepen our faith, and expand our compassion and love. In the name of the incarnate Lord of my experience, Jesus Christ, mercifully hear our prayer. Amen.
I'd like to present you with this certificate on behalf of the Monroe County Legislature. Thank you very much. I would like to take a moment to just say happy birthday to our Deputy Clerk, Frank Keofet-Lassie. Please stand as Legislator Morris reads us the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Before we continue with our regular order of business, yesterday marked the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. I would like to ask that we take a moment of silence to honor and remember those who we lost on September 11th, 2001, and those who have died of 9/11 related illnesses since then. Your copies of date August 8th, 2023 are available through Novus Agenda. Without exception, this journal will stand approved as submitted. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. There are several proclamations scheduled this evening. Mr. Clerk?
And before we get started with that, we have another birthday. President Lamar's birthday is this coming Saturday. So happy birthday, Sabrina. Our first proclamation, would Brett Sobreski please come forward? Also legislators Steve Brew, Yaversha Roman, Paul Dondorfer, President Sabrina Lamar, and County Executive Adam J. Bello.
Whereas Brett Sobreski, a retired sergeant and former SWAT team member of the Rochester Police Department, has both honored and raised money for the family of his fallen colleague and friend, Anthony Mazurkiewicz, through spreading awareness and support for public safety by embarking on a 1,310-mile journey from Florida to Rochester by completing 50 marathons in 50 days. And whereas Brett Sobreski, motivated by the memories of his fallen colleague and his family, ran 26.2 miles in a day in his 8 states for Mass tour. Brett remained committed to continuing on his journey despite not knowing how he could continue some nights. He states, "I knew I can never quit. Quitting was never an option," and kept his word. And whereas Brett Sobreski, a recipient of multiple commendations, chief's letters, captain's letters, excellent police service, and many other awards throughout the duration of his career, managed to raise over $105,000 for the Mazurkiewicz family and reminded all of us on the importance of community and public safety. And whereas upon completing the 50th day and 50th marathon, which ended in the city of Rochester, Sobreski was able to keep his promise to Lynn Mazurkiewicz and her family through a large gathering of support. Originally anticipated to be 500 people running the last 3 miles with Brett Sobreski, over 900 people signed up to support the Mazurkiewicz family and remember the sacrifices that our public safety officers undergo in order to keep our community safe, keeping Anthony Mazurkiewicz's memory and legacy alive. Now, therefore, we, Adam J. Bello, County Executive, Sabrina Lamar, President, Paul Dondorfer, Legislator District 9, Steve Brew, Majority Leader, and Yverse Roman, Minority Leader, on behalf of Monroe County, do hereby recognize and congratulate Brett Sobreski in honor of his accomplishments and service to the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Legislator Dondorfer, President Lamar, for this. All the accolades are for Tony. They always have been. I'm just a conduit for his sacrifice. And over those 1,310 miles, I saw the fabric of America, and it was beautiful. It was indescribably beautiful. I met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, kind, caring, decent, hardworking, law enforcement supporting people that would give me the last dollars out of their pockets to give to a family they never met, the Mazurkiewicz family. People that would pass on condolences through hugs and prayers and tears and handshakes for a hero they never met, Officer Anthony Mazurkiewicz. I saw humanity every single day. I just wish the entire world could have saw what I saw, because it would be vastly different tomorrow. And people want us to believe that we're a nation severely divided. I do not see that. We're not going to agree on all the issues, but I met a ton of people who are willing to meet in the middle. So I hope you believe me when I tell you that the heart and the soul of our great nation is alive and well. Thank you and God bless.
Would Fire Chief Sam DeRosa please come forward? Also, legislators Sean McCabe, Kirk Morris, Paul Dondorfer, Kathleen Taylor, and President Sabrina Lamar.
Whereas Sam DeRosa has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to a community as an esteemed member of the Gates, Monroe County, and North Greece Fire Departments. Mr. DeRosa's steadfast passion for the community is shown through his service with the Gates Volunteer Firefighter Department, Monroe County Special Operations / Hazmat Team, Monroe County Fire Coordinator, and Career Fire Chief for North Greece Fire District. And whereas Mr. DeRosa has created a life's work around fire safety. Previously, he worked for Rochester Gas and Electric for 25 years, retiring as an operations manager responsible for fire protection, corporate security, claims, and emergency management. Following his retirement from RG&E, he became the Director of Operation Emergency Management for the County of Monroe. His choice to invest his time and efforts into multifaceted roles across various departments is a testament to his dedication to ensuring our community is safe. And whereas beyond his role in ensuring community safety, Mr. DeRosa has also taken on the mantle of a mentor and role model for emerging firefighters. He possesses leadership qualities that instill confidence and passion in those he served with. As chief in his time as a dedicated rank and file firefighter, he always remained someone the team wanted to be around. His journey has culminated in him being regarded as a venerable individual, bringing insights beyond the ordinary. And whereas much of Sam DeRosa's life has been dedicated to a vocation centered on providing unparalleled service to the community and earning their unwavering trust. The community extends perpetual gratitude for his remarkable contributions and for elevating the safety and well-being of all of our neighbors. We wish him the best in his well-deserved retirement. Now, therefore, we, Sabrina Lamar, President, Sean McCabe, Legislative District 6, Kirk Morris, Legislative District 7, Paul Dondorfer, Legislative District 9, and Kathleen Taylor, Legislative District 19, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Fire Chief Sam DeRosa on his dedication to Monroe County through his lifelong service as a firefighter and fire chief.
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve the county.
Would Jack Tangent please come forward? Also, legislators Robert Colby and his daughter Jackie Smith.
Not Robert's daughter. Not Robert's daughter.
Whereas in 1961, while still in high school, Jack F. Tangent made a decision that would shape the rest of his life, joining the United States Navy as a CB reservist. Shortly after, Mr. Tangent was assigned to the Mobile Construction Battalion 7 and deployed to Guantanamo Naval Base, Cuba, in October 1962 at the beginning of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The CB's division was created in the early days of World War II, organized and commanded by the officers of the Civil Engineer Corps. The division mission was to build bases for combat forces, ensure their defense, and provide support of any requested kind. In this mission, they earned the motto of "Can Do." And whereas following his service in 2004, Jack became a member of the Navy CB Veterans of America with the creation of the NSVA Island X-12 Rochester, New York. Throughout his time, Jack served in various offices, including Commander, Secretary, and Treasurer at Island X-12 Rochester. He played a pivotal role in having a portion of the parkway dedicated to the U.S. Navy CB Island X-12 Rochester and was integral to maintaining the Navy CB Memorial in Tonawanda, New York. And whereas in August 2021, Jack Tangent was appointed U.S. National Commander of Navy CB Veterans Association. In this role, he represented the organization of 4,300 Navy CB veterans to the public and other veteran military organizations throughout the United States. And his responsibilities included promoting, developing, guiding, and directing the NSVA in both business and membership practices. Notably, his efforts led to the approval of a U.S. Postal Navy CB stamp through his petitioning of the U.S. Postal Service. And whereas in the true can-do spirit, Jack Tangent recently joined the American Legion Harsh Crisp Seaman Post 0379, where he was elected post commander, demonstrating his ongoing commitment to supporting veterans in his community. Monroe County is lucky to have peers like Mr. Jack Tangent. Our veterans and neighbors here and across the country are in a better place because of his exemplary service. Now, therefore, we, Sabrina Lamar, President, and Robert Colby, Legislator District 20, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize Jack F. Tangent for his relentless dedication to our country, community, and fellow veterans.
I remember what I did with it. I had to keep it just short and sweet, but thank you. I'd like to thank legislator Robert Colby, the Monroe County Legislature, and Monroe County Executive Adam Bello for this proclamation. It is indeed honorable. Yeah. But most of all, I'd like to thank my family, okay, for their support, reinforcement, and guidance during my tenure as the National Commander, the CB Veterans of America. That meant a lot. Thank you. May God bless America.
Would Anthony DeSalvo and Chris Cohen please come forward? Also, legislators Dave Long, Maria Vecchio, and County Executive Adam J. Bello.
Whereas on the rainy morning of August 16th, Brenda Weich and her husband Frankie Hernandez were out on their normal paper route for the Democrat and Chronicle when suddenly the ground beneath them gave out, and within seconds they descended into darkness. And whereas Anthony DeSalvo, getting ready for work, heard two loud crashes followed by screams. Rushing outside, he discovered the horrific sight. Brenda standing on top of her car inside the 12-foot sinkhole. His first instinct was to help the couple try and pull the woman from the sinkhole. Unable to do so, he called first responders and directed traffic away from the sinkhole. And whereas when Chris Cohen arrived at the horrific scene, he too attempted to aid the strangers. While waiting for first responders, Chris and Anthony grabbed each of Brenda's hands, and by 6 o'clock, neighbors Chris and Anthony had heroically lifted her from the 12-foot sinkhole. And whereas a true test of character saw one respond to those in need, and the act of heroism serves as a powerful reminder of the strength and compassion that lie within each of us. Anthony and Chris responded with haste to a crisis, exemplifying the very best of humanity and making all their neighbors in Monroe County proud. And whereas with the pervasive coverage of tragic news stories today, it's comforting to know that there are good people like Chris and Anthony who are willing to help strangers during a crisis. On behalf of Monroe County, we thank you for your bravery, courage, and willingness to help those in need. Now, therefore, we, Adam J. Bello, Monroe County Executive, and County Legislators Dave Long and Maria Vecchio, do hereby proclaim the 12th of September 2023 to be a day to honor Anthony DeSalvo and Chris Cohen Day throughout Monroe County, and call upon everyone to celebrate and honor them for their exceptional act of heroism.
I didn't really prepare anything, but like I've been telling everybody, given the opportunity, I think anybody would have done what I did, right? You hear a woman crying for help, probably gonna jump in and figure it out. So thanks.
I will now recess the legislature to hold a public hearing. I now declare open the public hearing on authorizing acquisition of property located at 650 Behan Road in the town of Chalai, and amending Resolution 437 of 1989, amending lease and operating agreement with Monroe County Airport Authority.
No one is registered for this public hearing this evening.
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed. I will now reconvene the September 12th, 2023 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. We have several people registered to address the legislature. Mr. Clerk?
If you require assistance, a deputy is available to assist you in approaching the lectern. I will call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature, and kindly conclude your remarks when the timer sounds, and exit through the back of the chambers over to my right. Thank you for your cooperation. The first three speakers are Richard Rosen, Reverend Dr. Peters, and John Keiser.
Shall I proceed? Quite an honor being the first. Okay. The $1 million of human services funds that are proposed to be reallocated should remain and indeed be adjusted to meet evidence-based needs rather than set by arbitrary required dollar allocations. I urge you also to consider the broader picture. Can Monroe County continue to be the place where we want to live and work and will attract talent from other cities and abroad when the parts of the city of Rochester continue to be plagued by crime, poor school attendance, and very high youth unemployment rates? I want to talk about ways the county can help remedy this situation. For agencies to help individuals and families to address these conditions, studies now show that housing security must first be provided. It's a prerequisite. The feasibility of new affordable housing with support services partially depends on county programs being adequately funded. There are things the county level of government is charged with doing, but that does not preclude the county contributing, for example, to housing and social services in projects primarily funded by federal, state, and private investors. Housing that is affordable with the attendant support services needed by a big portion of those households is the underlying prerequisite. Stable housing is a necessity for agencies to successfully address challenges of youth, school dropout rates, steering youth away from the culture of drugs and guns. Having met your legal obligations for serving the needy, wouldn't it be wise to then supplement the programs primarily financed by federal, state, and city to get better outcomes? That modest level of commitment by the county can play an important role to assure a sound budget for new housing ventures. Stable housing with support services that is affordable will be essential if we're able to address the social issues that blight parts of our county and prevent the county from achieving the goals we all desire. Thank you.
Madam President and legislators, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I thank you in advance for the hard work you are doing on the budget. But I understand that you're about to cut the funding for human services. 8 years ago, I helped to create REACH, an organization concerned to support men and women experiencing homelessness. We face a housing crisis. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition notes that in Rochester, for every 100 individuals or families living on extremely low incomes, there are only 27 units at affordable prices. It is not surprising that we are seeing the number of homeless people rising. Now is not the time to cut human services. I grew up in a poor family. My father was a day laborer, my mother a domestic servant. There were times when my father was not at work. Snacks for me consisted of bread and dripping. I'll explain that to you if you want. But thanks to public support, we lived in public housing, and my father was at times on the dole. I now speak to you as someone who has succeeded, but I could not have done so without public generosity. I am here to ask you to consider the Monroe Housing Plan as you deliberate on the 2024 budget. This plan is being presented to you by many who, like my parents, struggle to survive. This is a wealthy community and yet has one of the highest rates of poverty in our state. With the current steep rise in rents, we need to find the generosity of spirit that will open the door to those who are trapped in poverty. Reach's social work team is finding it harder and harder to find permanent housing for those who are ready. Do not cut human services, but be generous toward our fellow citizens. We can do better. Make generosity your byword. Thank you.
I'm John Keevert. I am co-chair and speaking for the Environmental Justice Ministry of First Unitarian Church of Rochester. We strongly support having a study around implementation of a public-owned utility and energy utility in Monroe County. When RG&E was acquired by a foreign company, they cut staff to maximize profits. This resulted in poor service and careless billing. This led to many people like me receiving exorbitant $700 bills. If I were part of the 60% of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck, this would have been a financial disaster. And there certainly are people suffering both in the city and the suburbs. The recent exorbitant rate increases that RG&E is requesting is further justification for shifting to a public utility where decisions at the highest level are made by members of the community with the best interest of the community in mind. Experience shows that public utilities are 13 to 63% cheaper and service is better. This sounds like just a good business case to me. You now have the opportunity to improve the lives of citizens in Monroe County. Will you choose to spend a modest fraction of your county budget for a study on a utility to implement and run a public study to run and implement a public utility, or will you favor inaction and allow $100 million to leave the county every year and line the pockets of a foreign CEO and shareholders? The choice is yours, but I remind you that more and more people are looking. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Jessica Kilpatrick, Terrence Schnurr, and Asia Adams. Asia Adams. My apologies.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jessica Kilpatrick. I work for Child Protective Services. I was a senior caseworker on the training team. I'm now an out of title supervisor of an investigation team. So I will say that I know I haven't been here in a minute. You've probably missed me, but things have gotten better with vacancies. Thank you. We have, let's see, we hired over 100 people. We had another, I think 25 or 27 start on Monday, so yesterday. So we are, increasing the amount of caseworkers that are being hired by the county, are going into the field. I will say that safety does continue to be an issue. I did take a break, and when I came back to work, I did hear that there was a shooting in the St. Paul parking lot. So there were caseworkers that came up to me and said that, nothing to do with the county, but just caught in the crossfire. So caseworkers are leaving the St. Paul building at the end of the day. I think this was like 5:30, 5:45. And there are people, shooting out of their cars, right? So having to run to your car, duck behind your car, while at work. That's nothing any of us want to do. I realize that this is not something that can be controlled by the county. This is out of hand everywhere. So I'm not blaming that, but that is just part of what we are dealing with, right? I do not want to wear a bulletproof vest in the field. My caseworkers don't want to wear that either. We still go out and engage with families. We still go into homes. The housing crisis is real. We need to hold landlords more accountable. That's just my plug. So just the work continues. I will have been with the county 10 years in December, and I continue to enjoy what I do. I like helping people, and I just want you to know that human services are needed. Do not cut the funding. Do not cut the funding. You need to continue to fund human services. Thank you. I'll be back in October.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening to all distinguished guests. I guess here we go again. I thought I was through with you guys 3 years ago, but apparently I got to come back again. We have a real serious homeless problem here in Rochester. It's gotten very bad, and it's going to get worse. Adam, your day is done. I'm sorry. I got to take my vote back from you. Enjoy your time. But to the people who can really make the change, you got to do it. Because a lot of you are not going up and down Main Street at night, Central Park, Joseph Avenue, hell, try Monroe Avenue. Try under the bridges, the pathways. You know, there's a homeless tent at the railroad station near the tracks. And I guarantee you not a single one of you who are seem to be very conservative about this issue care. I'm going to ask y'all one serious question. You need to think about it. Would you want to trade places with those folks? Hey, I'm talking to these. If you don't make up your mind now, I can promise you where you're going to end up in your afterlife. And you're going to enjoy thinking about all the mistakes you have made. A lot of you don't belong in these seats right now, I can tell. You need to talk to your people that live in your areas about this homeless problem, because sooner or later, it's going to go outside Monroe County, definitely the city of Rochester, because it is heading that way shortly. You're too busy trying to build high rises, trying to make profit for people who can't even see the bright of day. You got to open up your heart, because if you don't, you're just proving to me exactly what I feel. You're cold, you're heartless. And the only thing that can help you is the devil himself, because you're part of his crew. And apparently somebody's trying to tell me something. Try this. My great-granddaughter, your niece. All right, but get it right, please. If you don't see, go outside at night before you leave here tonight. Actually, go down Main Street. There's a lady in front of the old Holiday Inn. Go down there, drive. I dare you, and you go look. Look.
Our next three speakers are Dr. Lisa Barr, Andrea Ryan, and Preacher Donald Adams.
And as you're coming up here, please remember not to address anyone in particular. Your statement should be thorough. Thank you.
First Amendment, right? My name's Lisa Barr. Good evening. Thank you for being public servants in such troubled times. And thank you for hearing my plea tonight that you table for further comments and research the movement of the alleged $2 million surplus from human services. Isn't it embarrassing that money hasn't been spent? Democrats, of course, would be wise to remember that since LBJ's start of what was supposed to be phase one of the Great Society program derailed by Vietnam War spending, social programs have been relentlessly cut and in accelerated manner since first Ronald Reagan, and then the debilitating role Newt Gingrich played on Bill Clinton's efforts to try reversing some of that short-sighted cruelty. House Republicans vow to shut government spending down, and soon the Socials Workers Union told you they know people, families who could use these funds. Please table this. Learn about the needy people. Hey, and by the way, anybody know if the 60-year-old Democratic Chronicle delivery carriers who ended up in that hole got their car replaced? Because guess what? They're not employees, they're subcontractors, so they don't qualify for workers' comp. I believe a true Democrat and a non-MAGA Republican, and my parents were non-MAGA Republicans, they would be opposed to this, would blanch at the notion of diverting surplus aid away from the needy. I was public relations director for New Orleans City Park in the mid-'80s. We raised $2 million for an antique carousel renovation. It was sexy enough to do just that. The desired public housing project, not so much. But y'all can raise money for the giraffe, okay? The white flight suburbs of Monroe County need to constantly think about how to help the city that opened its arms in a halfway manner to the people fleeing Jim Crow repression in the 50s and 60s, just as it now must help the progeny of those refugees and new climate refugees. Please remember, we could all become refugees and be in need in Democrats at a time when the police union still have not denounced their brother and or parent unions who supported Donald Trump for president twice. They failed to denounce the January 6th insurrection. They failed to lobby for a return of the same Clinton administration gun laws. Stop giving tax money to the police mid-contract. Those monies could have better been spent on gun buyback programs, and that is pro-police. So please table your pending vote tonight, and thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Andrea Ryan, and I'm here with the environmental advocacy group Color Arundecoit Green. I am a resident of Arundecoit and a teacher in the Churchville Chi School District. It is really encouraging to see New York State and Monroe County take tangible actions towards climate change. I was particularly excited to see the extensive bike lanes planned in the countywide active transportation plan. I'm asking the county legislator to support these further specific actions. 1, to build multiple composting facilities within the county. Move past feasibility studies to implement composting now so that businesses can comply with the food scraps law. 2, please hire staff to oversee the continued implementation of the Monroe County's Climate Action Plan, including a director of sustainability with training and experience. 3, and finally, I urge the legislature to add a budget line for community level climate work above and beyond current work being done by the county. As a teacher, I see the future of our county being molded into thoughtful, hardworking people every day. Support for these improvements promises these young people the future they deserve. Thank you for your time and attention.
Good evening to everybody. I sat in the back and I listened to the roll call. Everybody was here except one. I see y'all honored everybody that come up here, but I got a question for you. You know what my question is? Will you help the homeless and the poor this year when Code Blue comes? We can help them. That's for all of y'all, because you know what? We put you in here. And I heard what you say, but Mr. Bellows, we put you in here. You need to come see us because we help you got in here. You all are politicians. You work for us. The problem of it is this: homelessness, like my brother said, is sad. Why do my group, Rosa, and all the rest of us have to get up here and do your job? We got to get out there and go find the poor and the homeless. It's your job. That ain't our job. But I promise you this here. Just like God sitting in heaven, If the same thing happened in Buffalo happened here, the people blood stain is on all of your hands. It ain't on nobody else's hands. You're lawmakers. Show yourself this question. Are you doing the best that you can do? No. Because we don't see you out there where we at. Oh, Sister Grace, nobody want to hear her. Nobody wants to help her. But I promise you this here. When Sheridan Norfolk was in here, I gave her this and I'm gonna give it to y'all. Put around me, 15, 7, and 8. The poor is in need, but the rich won't lean. What affect us gonna affect you.
Our next three speakers are Donna Sarnaci. Sister Rita Lewis, and Sister Grace Miller.
Everybody and welcome everybody and welcome whoever is there who just whatever. Thank you. Anyway, I'm here for Metro Justice. I'm also here for Southwest Rotary. There's my pin. I am here for the Rochester for Energy Democracy, RED, that we would like RG&E. I'm not as a good speaker like all these other people, but it's from my heart. I have had Rochester Gas and Electric for years and years. They've really treated me well when it comes to heat and everything like that. I've just heard horrible things about, their customer service and all that. And what I wanted to also say is that the $1 million that we were talking about spending, this sounds like an awful lot of money. Don't we have anyone in-house that can do anything like this? Or do we always have to go out and hire many other different people to do something that perhaps we could do in-house? I worked at Genesee Hospital. And you know what happened with Genesee Hospital? It's closed and now UVAR has everything. So I've gone through a lot of different changes and like that. And, I have to piggyback along with everybody about the homeless. I do Meals on Wheels. I live in the 19th Ward. I love the 19th Ward. I have on my bracelets, I have Be the Change, Make a Difference in the Serenity Prayer. And the Serenity Prayer. So I hope you all think about a lot of things. And I sure, you're not paying attention either. And I was not a teacher, but I was a transportation security officer at the airport. So I want to say thank you for listening to me. And one thing that Goldie Hawn said, which I thought was pretty cute, was that I have a tickle in my heart. So I have a tickle in my heart for the homeless and for the housing problems and everything like that. So I'm not that great of a speaker, but it's in my heart. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Sister Rita, and I have been a part of a new community, La Madonna de la Strada, and our whole focus is to provide shelter and care for our homeless brothers and sisters. We're struggling to get a place for them, and the place is so much needed. All of us see the homeless every day as we go about our work and our business. We see them. And it's wrong that they're out there with nowhere to go. It really is wrong. And we need a place that will welcome them and care for them. It's simply doing what's right. And so I'm asking you to not divert money from human services to other departments because it is needed. It is needed to shelter our brothers and sisters and so many families who are now struggling, not knowing where they're going to go with their children, where they're going to lay their heads. It's a real problem out there. La Madonna de la Strada has had to pay for 4 families at a hotel recently within the past week because they had no other funds. And we have very little money ourselves. We're just struggling, trying to get going. But we had to do this because we don't want them out in the street. We really don't. But that was the only option. When they call DSS, they're denied, or nobody answers the phone, or they're told our places are full. There is no place for you when there is room at the motel. That's the reality. There is room there, and DSS could pay for them if they chose to, but for some reason, they're choosing not to. And there is no reason to deny somebody shelter. There is no good reason at all. So let's do the right thing and also support the Monroe Housing Plan, because there are many provisions in there that's going to benefit our poor people to get housing and to get shelter. And it's needed. So please keep that in your budget. Thank you.
We're here today to speak to the homeless crisis that exists here in Monroe County. And we're asking you to vote yes to the proposal put forth by Rachel Barnhart and Mercedes Vasquez Simmons. The county is taking $1.9 million from human services to put into parks and a golf course. You hear that? We're asking you not to take money from human services for this purpose, but to use it instead to provide housing for the homeless. That money should be used to take care of the poorest of our community and not to provide entertainment for people who already have. One early morning, on a cold morning, about 3 a.m., Sister Rita and I were out on the streets to see if there were homeless people on the streets. We didn't meet any of you there. We ran into a woman who was seeking shelter for herself and her 3 children. She had been refused help from the Department of Human Services. She left her children at a friend's house while she went out looking for a place for the 4 of them. She could get no help. We found her at 3 a.m. in the morning on the streets, crying, sitting on a bench, crying because she could not get the help that she needed to take care of her children. Maybe some of you should walk on the streets late night and early morning. Really. To see what the reality is out there. You won't find a pretty picture. And you would not even think of a park or a golf course. Those are nice for people who have, but people who have nothing need housing. You have a responsibility to our poor and homeless. You need to take this responsibility seriously. There should be no homeless out on our streets in Monroe County. We have the means necessary to take care of all of them. And we're willing to help you to make this happen.
Our next 3 speakers are Karen Socks, Karen Fox. It's not my handwriting. I apologize. Ramona D'Agostino and Oscar Lee.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to say I didn't prepare anything tonight. I thought I would speak from the heart. In Asa, you forgot Lyle Avenue, you forgot Dewey Avenue, and you forgot Lake Avenue. I've been homeless since December 27th, when somebody broke in to the apartment downstairs from where I live, spread charcoal lighter fluid all over the floor, and set it on fire. Now, that apartment, when we moved in 5 years ago, I said, that's it. I'm not moving again. I'm going to die here. And thank you, Jesus. I did not die there that night. Out of all the calls and texts and emails I sent out, I got one response. I looked at the apartment, loved it, had the funding, or so I thought. The manager called and, oh, you no longer meet the financial necessities that we cover. We haven't changed at all. They changed. So now we're still homeless. My son celebrated his birthday Saturday in a homeless shelter. I don't think any of you, and not one homeless person has spoken yet. I'm speaking for all of them. And you want to say that everybody's been helped except those that were sanctioned? I beg to differ. I know of at least 20 people right now in the shelter that have not been sanctioned. And they keep getting told, oh, you don't have the right paperwork, when they've given the same paperwork month after month. And nobody. And then to be told, I got an email that I hadn't reached out to any of them. Excuse me, I've been putting in paperwork every single month because that's what they request. And here I am still homeless. Please don't put the money into parks and golf courses, unless of course you're going to build housing in those parks. Thank you. And stay blessed.
Hello, my name is Ramona D'Agostino, and I'm an assistant professor of finance at University of Rochester. My research area of expertise is municipal finance and corporate finance, and I'm here to talk about creating a municipal utility, and so with respect to RG&E. The county executive has mentioned that the value to acquire the assets of RG&E would be around 4 billion, and I'm here to state that this is not the cost to acquire RG&E. First of all, this number refers to the book value of the assets, and a book value and the cost of origination is not the fair market value, which is the price at which an asset would trade in the market. It's important to understand that there are substantial discrepancies between book values and market values. And to understand what the market value would be, one will need to understand exactly the depreciation and the value of the asset currently. So a proper assessment of the lines and the assets is needed. In terms of borrowing, it's important to understand that the county, Monroe County, has a much better credit rating than Avangrid. Avangrid stands at BBB+, while Monroe County, let's take a comparable, which is the Water Authority. It's AA+. This means lower borrowing costs. And we know from research that lower borrowing costs translate in lower costs for end users. So if we combine these two, I think it's important to understand that if we want to give citizens a fair price of what it would actually cost to buy RG&E, we would need to carry out an implementation study. And this would give citizens a better estimate and just at least a chance at lower prices and better service. Thank you. And I would like to give out an handout with actual numbers and analysis, if that's possible. Thank you.
To the people in the gallery, please remember to be respectful to those who are speaking. Thank you.
Oh, what an honor to be here. I am Oscar Lee Brewer Jr., the Working Family Party endorsed candidate for Legislative District 21 this year. Minus a couple of legislators, you guys should really be ashamed of yourselves right now. Honestly, you should hold your head in shame. One thing I learned this year as a candidate is our constituents talk to us. When was the last time? Matter of order? Yes, I'm here. I'm not campaigning from the podium. All right, I can go live on Facebook with this.
Our next three speakers are Susan Porter, Ellen Henry, and Justine Harris.
Good evening. My name is Susan Porter and I'm representing myself. I am retired after 40 years at a small nonprofit. I live at 101 Atkinson Street in Rochester, New York. The metropolitan area of Rochester, New York has a deficit of 31,125 units. The source of that is the 2023 GAP report for people at or below the extreme limited income level. Many people are not on the dole. Many people in this group are employed at low wage jobs. High levels of extreme poverty mixed with an affordable housing crisis make a perfect storm. Unlike 911, this emergency has been growing over decades by internal instead of external threats. As the cartoonist character Pogo says, we have met the enemy and he is us. Our policies have created this problem, and better affordable housing policies will reverse this problem. While working, I served as the housing person and annually assisted roughly 40 or so people, primarily women and children, to obtain and maintain stable housing. Safe and affordable apartments are really hard to find because we do not have enough of them. We have a deficit of 31,125 units. While apartment searching, traumatized families and children stayed in seedy shelters or cheap motels. I witnessed the struggle to get kids to school, to attend appointments, or to get to work. During the search, some participants slept in parks, on vacant porches, dumpsters, in their car, or in overcrowded conditions with friends or family. Sometimes families and children navigated roaches, mice, and abusive shelter staff. 22 years ago, a diverse group of 40 people with a coordinated plan reversed the course of a speeding jet in Shanksville, PA. They bravely saved hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. You can too. Thank you.
My name is Ellen Henry. I'm a longtime resident of Pittsford Parenton and an active member of Color Pittsford Green. And I agree, it's encouraging to see the county moving forward with the climate action plan. And we thank you for prioritizing this among all these other things that we've been hearing about tonight. But I'm here tonight to add my 2 cents worth in advocating that the county join the city and implement a study to replace RG&E with a public utility. My personal experience as an RG&E customer has been comparatively benign, but it has especially irked me when our RG&E was acquired by Avangrid, and our ever increasing payments and those guaranteed profits now benefit a multinational corporation based in Spain. How does that make any sense except to the shareholders whose only concern is quarterly bottom lines and who likely have little connection to this community, nor even to the actual business of running a utility that provides what should be a human right? A publicly run utility, in contrast, historically provides less expensive and more reliable energy, and its revenues stay local, providing local jobs, local customer service, etc. And think about the impact of retaining that, whatever it is, $100 million of profit that is currently extracted from our payments, but that mostly leaves the country. This might be a game changer for some of the many Monroe County communities that we've been hearing about that suffer from seemingly intractable poverty. Furthermore, a public utility will prioritize transition to 100% renewable energy, which would surely help the county meet its climate goals and the state's CLCPA goals. So I recognize that such a transition seems and will be a long and complex process, but surely the benefits justify moving ahead ASAP with at least implementing a study, funding a study to determine how best to make it happen. So let's make it happen. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Justine Harris, and I'm here to speak my piece and say how I feel. I will say for the record, it's not fun being homeless in a city that has so much wealth to offer to others, but there is no help for the families. That speaks volumes. So I stand here today to ask of you all to consider helping our families thrive in Monroe County by adding funds to the Human Services budget. We do not need no more cuts. We've seen for decades money/grants come into this county and it was wasted. Meanwhile, our families are in distress due to poverty. Rochester ranks second among the nation's 75 largest metropolitan areas. Nearly half of all the children here live in poverty. A family of 4 receives $875 for shelter expense. This may not be available for all because some work, some receive SSI, SSD. And the minimum wage here is only $14.30. The fair market rent is $1,593. A housing voucher would definitely help cover the remaining of the difference. Honestly, you're not finding nothing here for $875, not even a room. Sadly, in these poverty-stricken neighborhoods, you can rent a 3-bedroom for $950. The income requirements for that is $2,100 plus other fees. So I stand here today to ask you not to cut the funding, but to increase the help for families and to help us thrive, because we deserve housing just as well as everyone that is sitting in those seats. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Amy D'Amico, Bryce Churko, and Dr. Michelle Wonderlich.
Good evening. As a resident of Monroe County, I'm here to ask you to consider putting additional funding into human services initiatives in Monroe County's upcoming budget. I know there's a formal vote today to affirm the Ways and Means Committee's reallocation of funds from human services funding to the zoo and the golf courses. I saw a county notice yesterday explaining that the surplus funds were because of the 274 rehab-related sanctions. In other words, the human services surplus exists because 274 addicts refused to seek treatment, so they were refused housing assistance, creating a surplus. That begs the question, were all those rehab sanctions because people would not seek zero tolerance treatment? In other words, were those sanctions against people who needed or sought other types of treatment than total abstinence, like Suboxone or methadone prescribed by a treating physician? And anyway, why is it ever okay to say you can't have county-funded housing because you're still a drug addict? When did that become okay? Why? Why are 274 drug addicts and their unmet needs funding county golf courses? The homelessness crisis is a policy choice, make no mistake. From a street outreach perspective, it has never been this bad. Instead of allocating human services funding to golf courses, I came here tonight to request that funds be added to, not subtracted from the human services budget. A lot of the homelessness we see in street outreach is from an upstream problem, not enough affordable apartments, and state funding for impoverished people to obtain apartments set at ludicrously low rates. Local county housing vouchers for families and individuals below 30% AMI should be coupled with temporary assistance and included in this year's budget. An individual would receive $440 from the state and $399 from the county, and together have enough to get a 1-bedroom listed at fair market rent rate. Thank you.
Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Bryce Churko, and I am here on behalf of Bees McCon and the Motel 6 in Gates, New York. I'm here to discuss an issue that is not only prevalent in Monroe County, but across New York State, emergency housing services. Historically, the Motel 6 and the county have had a longstanding and successful relationship. Recently, there has been a misunderstanding which has hurt the relationship. Ms. Khan, the owner, had reached out to the county to inform them they were going to have a few less rooms available to begin doing some renovations. The county's response was to remove all the families that they housed. Since the county has removed the families, Ms. Khan has proceeded with the renovations, as you can see from the photo, as well as passed her most recent health inspection. There's a serious demand for housing in Monroe County. Not only do we want to help these families, but it's very important to us that each family feels safe and comfortable staying with us. Motel 6 has consistently complied with all of the county's requests thus far. Please let us know what we can do to rebuild this relationship and house these families. We have plenty of rooms available. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Michelle Wenderlich with Metro Justice. I want to bring to your attention tonight a letter you should have all received today from the Climate Solutions Accelerator, calling on the county executive and all of you to commission and fund a public utility study. Additionally, today they submitted a press release outlining their objections to RG&E's rate increases of 37% and 34% over 4 years. They note in this letter, after participating for the past year as an intervener in RG&E's rate case, we do not believe that the company is truly committed to transitioning its business operations away from fossil fuels. Rather, what we have seen is the company's failure to make demonstrable progress towards meeting state climate law and other clean energy targets. RG&E has yet to develop a legally compliant process for measuring the emissions impact of their gas operations. Additionally, RG&E has not met most of the Public Service Commission's New Energy New York's targets, including energy efficiency measures and targets for low to moderate income households. Beyond some vague wording about improving education and working with local groups, there is no firm commitment from the company and no enforcement mechanism in the current joint proposal to hold them accountable for meeting these targets. Instead, RG&E is incentivized to continue investing millions of ratepayer dollars in fossil fuel infrastructure so as to earn a return for their shareholders while polluting our air, exacerbating the climate crisis, and negatively impacting our most vulnerable community members. They also note that this is nothing more than the county doing its due diligence, determining its climate future, and that a study should include stakeholder and community participation throughout the assessment process, including study design, analysis, and recommendations, and aim to empower local citizens to become active co-creators in their clean energy future in ways the current utility rate cases do not. Additionally, a note that we do not support moving DHS money, and there are more impactful uses for that money in our community. Just submitting the letter for you all.
Our next three speakers are Matthew Gould. Barbara Hughes. Charlene Willis.
Should I go now or? Okay, so I really can't say anything as good as any of the other people have said, except to say to support the Monroe County Housing Plan and that they absolutely should not cut any funding from Department of Health and Human Services unless it's, build housing on golf courses, in which case that's fine. What I instead want to talk about is air shows. And I know that the Adam Bello and the whole county was ecstatic to have the air show come here. But and maybe if you lived in, I don't know, Webster or something, or you came from, Albany or NYC or something like that, maybe you had a fun time. But if you lived in Henrietta or the 19th Ward or anything, and you had those jets flying over you every hours a day on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so fucking loud that you can't actually hear yourself think at times, so loud that you can't, and see, I don't have any sensory processing issues. I don't have any PTSD. I'm not a veteran. I'm not anything for that. And it still was awful. It was among the most miserable experiences I've had in Monroe County. Just hours and hours of these F-16s flying overhead, loud enough, like 110, 120 decibels, just utterly awful. And that's just me. People who people who are veterans, people who do have sensory processing with autism and stuff like that, it was utterly hellish. No one I've talked to in the 19th Ward, no one who actually lived on the top of these plains enjoyed the air show. And if you want to have that, fine, go out in the desert or something. But we should never host the Thunderbirds again. I'm buff.
Hi, my name is Barbara Hughes. I'm the voice for the homeless. My name is Barbara Hughes, like I said. I live in the city every day. I see the struggle of homeless people every day on the street. They're hungry, cold, and hopeless. I see them every day, not once or twice a week, but 7 times a week. And it's a matter of fact, I'm homeless myself. I cannot find housing nowhere. I've been looking and looking and looking. The only thing I got was no answer back. I looked and no luck on no apartment. Today, I went out and gave out some food bags. I do that every day. I had 4 confrontations from people. They couldn't go to a shelter because he said he was hungry and they wouldn't feed him. He didn't have no money, so he had to go. So I be out every day. I give out food bags for the hunger. I feed them. Clothes, I clothe them. They want change, I give it to them. Mind you, I'm homeless. Shoes, socks, underwear, I give them. This problem is getting serious with my homeless people. Sister Grace and Sister Rita, I'm their follower. I've been their follower for years. Not going nowhere. Sister Grace needs help. If y'all can listen and understand what she's saying, she needs help for a shelter for these people. They're homeless. They have nowhere to go. I met homeless people every day. They get in a shelter. They get thrown out because they have no money. They have no income. Really? That touches me a lot. Because you know why? I'm homeless. And I have a handicapped grandson. I took in a homeless man, being homeless, because a friend say I can stay with him. But mind you, I'm still homeless. But I still took in this homeless man. We need help, please. Don't ignore us homeless people. Please answer my plea and my cry. Thank you.
My name is Charlene Willis, and I'm a voice for the homeless. I've never been in front of anybody. This is the first time ever, and I'm nervous, but I'm going to speak from my heart. I volunteer for RAW, so I'm on the street walking Joseph Clinton, and we meet these people where they're at, whether it's the back of a truck, whether it's a tent, whether it's a car, whether it's someone underneath someone's porch. And I've talked to these people. These people are real. I've hugged them. I've been there for them. We need to keep the funds for the homeless. It's to me, one Christmas I went to Peace Village. And when I got there, everyone was so excited and everything that we were there. We decorated Christmas trees for each of the different tents. And I remember thinking to myself, this is a terrible, this is terrible. You got people living in tents with snow piled all up in front of it. And they pull it off and, they come out. But I'm not going to lie, I had the best Christmas ever. We decorated the trees. We laughed. We had hot chocolate. I let a guy sit in my car so he could get warm. And it hurts to see this. And I want these people to know I'm sorry for the tears, but this means a lot to me. That's the only reason why I'm up here, because I've never stood in front of a group of people. And I want these people to know that I want to be a positive force in their life and help them get the help that they need. I want to be there for them. I mean, these people experiencing homelessness deserve the type of love. And I want to be able to battle alongside of them, not against them. I want to show them that they're loved, that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're humans. They're not animals, they're humans. Thank you.
Our next public forum speakers are Christopher Monk, Amy Sposano, William Jr., and Terrence Schnur.
Hello, distinguished members of the Monroe County Legislature. My name is Christopher Monk. I'm a community organizer. I am a public servant. And I was someone that was homeless for about 10 years. I was addicted to heroin for 7. I almost certainly would have been one of your rehab related sanctions. And I work at the Center for Community Alternatives. And what I do every day is I try to connect people to services. And I can tell you for a fact that nearly every day I try to connect people to services knowing that there's not enough money, that there's not enough consideration. And I can also tell you that the only reason that I'm standing here today is because of investment in public services and compassion from people. Handcuffs never helped me. I had been arrested innumerable times. Not a single one of those times brought me closer to recovery. And I'm here to speak against the misappropriation of $1.9 million and in support of the Monroe County Housing Plan. Because I would venture to guess that every single person in this room could figure out a better way to serve the people with $1.9 million than to make the grass a little greener for a golf course. There's not enough money. We need more of it. We need more investment in the people, because that is specifically what we are talking about. We are talking about taking $1.9 million away from the people to give to a zoo, which is not inhabited by people, by the way, and to a golf course or whatever, so that we can attract some more tourists because we just had the PGA or something. Like, what are we talking about here? Have you walked around these streets? I want to express the gravity of the situation, because most of the people that are sitting back there are people that are going to be coming out in the streets with me this winter doing literal disaster relief. Okay. We find people on the streets. We roll around until 5 a.m. in the middle of these blizzards, because, you know, to get back to the gravity, right? We have one code blue shelter. I'm sorry. Okay. We have one code blue shelter in a city of 210,000 people. Okay. There's no physical way we're going to fit every homeless person in this shelter. Doesn't matter if everybody knows where it is, because we're giving people the ride there. Okay. We have more evictions per capita than any other major city in New York State. We give out more sanctions per capita than any other city in New York State. Homelessness is a policy choice. And I'm in a room full of policymakers. I want you to hold that in your head, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Spezzano, and I work for a healthcare organization that provides healthcare for our underserved and our people experiencing homelessness. I've been with the organization for about a little over 5 years, and I have to say to you, it saddens me to see what we have to deal with every single day. We talk about housing being a basic need. It's not a basic need for, we don't have a need for, well, I'm sorry, take it back. We have a need for housing, but it's not a basic need for our homeless people because it's not available. We've talked about medical care for all. We've introduced the marketplace. Housing is medical care. Housing is health care. It's essential. I want to share a little experience that I had late Friday evening. I had a mother, 40 years old, 3 kids, 17, 12, and 2 years old. Vacated a house that she was staying in with her boyfriend because the boyfriend became very abusive to the 12-year-old boy. She left, called DHS, no answer. We called DHS, they hung up. Called shelters, they were full. My staff stayed there until 6:30 at night trying to find this individual and her family housing. Finally, we had a return phone call from a member from DHS, and they said, well, you're a mandated reporter. You know what you have to do now. You need to call CPS. We called DHS for help. We can't place a family because there's no housing and the shelters are full. Please, we need your help. We seriously need your help for this housing plan in Monroe County. About 2 weeks ago, I stood at an organization and shook hands with some of you. Very surprised at the side that you sit on this evening. So I ask you again, please reconsider the housing plan for Monroe County. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is William Jr., and I'm one of the homeless family members that were affected in Motel 6. I'm a father of 3 and a wife, and I have a wife. When I was displaced in Motel 6 on June 31st, the Monroe County never replaced us, but we still stayed at Motel 6 because the owner kept us there because she didn't want to put women and children out on the street. Now, everybody talks about how bad Motel 6 was, but I can attest to you that they had violations, but I see all the work that they're putting in and they're up to code with what's going on. I'm still there to this day, by the way. So what we need to do is fix this problem because I'm directly affected. So I'm not just talking, I'm telling you because I live this every day. And as a father, I got to speak up. This has to change. That's all I got to say.
This concludes the public forum.
We will now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 23-0272.LL, enacting a local law amending chapter 384 entitled Pawnbrokers, Secondhand Dealers, and Jewelry and Coin Exchange Dealers.
The gallery.
No problem.
exits. 2-minute recess.
Is everybody ready?
We will now resume the meeting. We will now resume the meeting. Dave, if you could start over on the referral that we were on.
No problem.
Thank you.
Item number 1, referral 23-0272.LL, enacting a local law amending chapter 384 entitled Pawnbrokers, Secondhand Dealers, and Jewelry and Coin Exchange Dealers.
Moved by Legislator McCabe, seconded by Legislator Don Dorford. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 2, referral 23-0272.LL, providing that local law entitled enacting a local law amending chapter 384 entitled Pawnbrokers, Secondhand Dealers, and Jewelry and Coin Exchange Dealers be tabled.
Moved by legislator McCabe, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. This is to table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 3, referral 23-0272.LL, fixing a public hearing on local law entitled enacting a local law amending chapter 384 entitled pawnbrokers, secondhand dealers, and jewelry and coin exchange dealers.
Moved by legislator McCabe, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. This is to set the public hearing. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item. Legislator Brew.
I move that we move the remaining agenda items as one with the following items that we will leave out. It'd be items number 10, 17, 19, and 21.
That's 10, 17, 19, and 21.
Correct.
18 as well. Wait, hang on. Legislator Roman asked for item number 18 as well.
I'm sorry, say that again. Which one did you say? 18.
The accompanying bond res.
And legislator Baines, you seconded that? All in
One
favor?
second, hang on
Oh.
one second. So let me get this back in order. Sorry. Go ahead. You can do the
Yeah,
vote.
that's 10.
You can do the vote now.
Want to make sure everyone has 10, 17, 18, and 19? And 21.
Yes, we have a motion to move the remaining agenda items except for item number 10, 17, 18, 19, and 21.
All in favor? Any opposed? Will the clerk please read the next item?
Okay. Item number 10, referral 23-0261, accepting grant from New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for implementation of components of action plan addressing racial and ethnic disparities in the youth justice system.
Moved by legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Smith. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, legislator Heber.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you to the administration. In the third paragraph of the referral, it specifically states, quote, decrease the number of youth of color referred to the presentment agency for petitions, end quote. Earlier in the referral, it says, and again, I quote, promote effective efforts to reduce racial and ethnic disparities in their local jurisdictions, end quote. If I read the plan, it doesn't appear that ethnic groups are discussed in the plan. Can you explain why, please?
Through you, Madam President, can you repeat the paragraph that you were looking at again, please?
Certainly, through Madam President, the administration, I'm referring to the third paragraph of the referral.
Through you, Madam President, you're referring to the statement says the plan's objectives are to increase the number of youth of color who are offered, engage with, and successfully complete adjustment services.
That's part of it, yes.
Through you, Madam President, you look to the legislative referral supporting information. It explains that. Oh, Through you, Madam President, the plan involves that each and every youth who comes through the juvenile justice system for diversion services goes to what's called our diversion review committee. That review committee looks at each case to see if every opportunity has been afforded to that youth and family before sending the matter to the presentment agency. This referral asks for funds to help us elicit the help of youth who have been involved in the juvenile justice system to make sure that we are affording all youth the services that they require to be successful. We have noticed that there has been a disproportionate minority impacted, the disproportionate number of minorities impacted by juvenile justice system. And we are hopeful that by having this money, we will be able to provide resources and get information from the youth affected.
I understand that, Madam President. My question, and maybe I can make it, I'll try to make it more clear. Early on in the referral, it states the purpose of the money is to promote.
Legislator Hebert, can you talk into the mic? I can't hear you.
I'm attempting to. My neck's not helping me. I got the problem. Earlier, the goal says it's to promote effective efforts to reduce racial and ethnic disparities in local jurisdictions. Later in the third paragraph, it states to decrease the number of youth of color. It does not mention ethnic groups. That's the basis of my question. Why are we not? Oh.
Through you, Madam President, that could have been an error in the third paragraph. We look at all race and ethnicity as we're trying to help the youth that we engage with.
Glad to hear that. Thank you, Madam President. That's my only question.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 17, referral 23-0268, amending 2023-2028 capital improvement program to add project entitled CDC Annex Mod B renovation.
Moved by legislator Downdorfer, seconded by legislator Johns, and was that Smith? Is there any discussion? Go ahead, legislator. Oriole.
Thank you. Through the president to the administration. First of all, I want to thank you for providing the daily count of the census for the month of August. And my request is if we can get that every month on a continuing go forward basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead, legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Madam President. Quickly through you to the administration. I just want to thank you for getting a letter from OCFS saying that you can continue.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 18, referral 23-0268.BR, resolution authorizing the issuance of $1 million bonds of the County of Monroe, New York, to finance the cost of the CDC Annex Mod B renovation in and for said county at an estimated maximum cost of $1 million.
Moved by legislator Downdorfer, seconded by legislator Johns and legislator Smith. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 19, referral 23-0269, authorizing various budget appropriations transfers related to the 2023 operating budget.
Moved by legislator Smith, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, legislator Brew.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, to the administration. We know there's been a lot of discussion during committees about safety net. Can the administration explain these transfers what impact they may have on the Department of Human Services, and what impact they will have on Safety Net and its recipients?
Thank you, through you, Madam President. Let me give a real brief answer to that, and then I would like to turn it over to Commissioner Wright, who maybe can get a little more in-depth answer on this. As we said during committees, Safety Net is an entitlement program. That is a program that anyone who applies for it and meets the criteria for it is automatically eligible for and has a legal right to receive those benefits. So from a budgeting standpoint, when Mr. Franklin puts the budget together, it is absolutely essential that there are enough dollars in that account to meet any anticipated need that we have for the demand for that. So every year, and this has gone on for probably it predates my time in the legislature, that there is always an amount over budgeted in that account. And also predating my time in the legislature, there are third quarter, fourth quarter reallocations of money out of the safety net account and transfer and allocations transferred to other accounts, just because those dollars have to be there, and there's always a surplus in those accounts, and there's always a transfer out with that. So let me just hit on a couple points that were addressed tonight through you, Madam President. With these programs, there and with a lot of items when it comes to activists, there's a tremendous amount of passion regarding these subjects, which is certainly understandable. There were a number of things and a number of assumptions that were made and allegations that were made that are simply not true and not the reality of what is happening. And let me just tackle a couple of them. And again, I don't want to get into a lot of detail here. I would like to turn it over to Commissioner Wright to do that. You know, somebody had used the term that, you know, we had met our legal obligation, and, you know, it's sort of our attitude that we're done, and hey, we checked the box and we moved on. I would really want to make the point that in this administration, there has been an unprecedented investment. And again, it has been done, it's not just this administration, it has been done with the support of this legislature. In terms of dollars in underserved communities, there has been regular increases in the Department of Human Services budget. And there has also been tens of millions of dollars that have been invested in underserved communities to deal with a lot of the issues that we heard about today. And, you know, just to be prepared, because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going to go, you know, I brought my list of ARPA grants, which, you know, I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to distract from what the conversation was. But one of the speakers tonight, you know, went and talked about the organization that they worked for and how, you know, nothing's getting done and nothing changes and, you know, everything's terrible. Their organization received $3.8 million in ARPA funding, and it's for juvenile violence. There is a component in that juvenile violence grant that includes housing. There are a number of grants that include healthcare funding. And again, that's not related to safety net, but again, the perception that, hey, we met our obligation and we're done, you know, bothers me. And I'm not somebody who does this work every day. Commissioner Wright and her team are people who do this every day. And I will let her speak to this. But again, this is a conversation we have had many times. And what I find particularly troublesome is when legislators, again, I get that the advocates don't
don't know the ins and outs of what is a very complex set of rules and regulations. I get that they might not know that, and that's understandable. But when legislators are out repeating a false narrative that, you know, Monroe County could do more, and, you know, we could do our own program, and, denigrating and criticizing fellow legislators because they're putting out a false narrative saying, oh, we could do so much more. We don't set the rules for these programs. We administer these programs, and these rules are set by New York State. So if legislators want to change the rules, we would be, the focus should be on the state. Let me stop. Let me ask Commissioner Wright, who can do a much better job than I can, to talk a little bit about specifics, and sort of talk a little bit about where the rubber is going to meet the road in terms of what impact these appropriation transfers are going to have on her department and the folks that her and her team serve every day, and what the impact will be.
Thank you so much, Deputy County Exec, and good evening, everyone. So, you know, through Madam President, I just wanted to make a couple comments because there was a lot said this evening, and not to keep everyone till tomorrow. There's too much to unpack there. I will say this. I am, you know, as the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, extremely disheartened by a lot of the negative comments that is being said during our legislative sessions that are being put in the media. I am a proud commissioner of our DHS team that work tirelessly every single day to promote higher quality of life for our underserved community and children and families in Monroe. We are a system that when families are at their worst, DHS is there to assist. Are there barriers as it relates to regulations? Because we are government that are highly regulated, and we do not make those decisions here locally. I am proud to work with this administration and my DHS leadership team that every single day are committed to fulfill the mission of serving our community. As a young lady that grew up in New York City housing projects, first generation American from immigrant parents that navigated through poverty herself, I take a personal slander at some of the comments, as I know I would never, ever, and this administration is very aware that I am very vocal, would never sit back and allow funding to be taken away from the DHS budget that would violate and put barriers into the services that we provide on a daily basis. And I must say we provide many of them. I also think that there's an opportunity for many to seek to understand and to open up an opportunity for some level setting. I would like to also start by saying and clarify that the Department of Human Services, we do not create programs and we do not administer. These are all programs that are highly regulated through our state and federal regulations. So some of the energy and some of the concerns that we're hearing, I welcome that when we need to come together as a community here at the county to fight with our federal and state partners. I heard someone say a family of 4, 875 shelter expense, probably correct. But do we set that funding here locally? We do not. Some of these regulations, some of these funding that is put forth has been in place, and I've been working for government for over 2 decades. There's an opportunity for us to come together to solve these bigger problems in our community without spreading misinformation, pointing fingers, and placing blame. But in order to fix these problems, we really need to understand what they are. We need to educate ourselves on the complexities of the current system that every day I'm attempting to navigate through, and to develop real and thoughtful solutions. I'm also proud to say that I have gotten to know several of the legislators And what I am so proud is that when we come to this place, rather it's regarding safety net transfers, budget transfers, the Monroe County Children's Detention Center, I have showed up and I have presented at every single table between me and my leadership team. At times to my detriment when I'm getting beat up and yelled at, but making that space and that opportunity to sit there and do my best to try to educate on the complexity of the system that we navigate through. Many of the advocates that stood up and spoke today, I recollect going back last year, having these same conversations, talking about Cold Blue, talking about homelessness, welcoming them to seats at the table, opening up my office door. Because one thing's for sure and two things for certain, Monroe County experiences winter every single year. And here we are again, talking about homelessness and housing and Cold Blue. And I am still waiting for the day, for the recommendations and the solutions and the invites to come sit at these tables so we can be thoughtful in our processing, in our planning, and in our advocacy agenda. Right now, we are in the space where we are looking at another building to provide additional emergency housing. And the pushback that I am receiving, right? Because it's all great until sometimes it's in your own backyard. So I hope that when we are looking to advance these programs, create other spaces for homelessness, the same individuals will stand with us. And when we get all of those pushbacks in relation to where we are with planning, what are we doing for the homeless? Let's first seek to understand. And I open my office door to have those conversations.
Sure. I would just ask that please decorum continue to be maintained in this legislative chambers. Many people have spoken about this and other issues, and respect has been granted to all people that have been speaking. The administration was asked a question by our majority leader. They're kind enough to provide a response and provide some information that I'm certainly interested in hearing. I would just ask again that all in the room, please maintain decorum and please show respect as respect has previously been given to them.
Thank you. Legislator Brew, has your question been answered or?
Test. Okay. Yes, Madam President, but I do have a follow-up question and a comment. If there were a need from this point out until the end of the year to engage DHS workers, whether it be CPS workers or otherwise, in overtime pay for those extra services needed, say, for example, when the Cold Blue situation, my question to the administration, are we assured that there will be ample funding within the DHS budget to provide those type of services?
Do you, Madam President? Absolutely. As you also recollect, we went through unprecedented times with staff vacancies, right? 50% down, child family services, almost 40% down in our examiner staff. Well, we utilized overtime in abundance to cover that. So when it's situational where there's a need and we need to bring additional staff to cover, to process applications, to ensure that housing placements are made, that funding is always available to us. Yes, the funding will be available because I don't want to get soapboxy.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Go ahead, Legislator Barnhart.
Thank you. First, I don't think it's appropriate to condescend to people who spoke to us tonight. They may not have all of their facts straight, but they were clear that their needs are not being met. And they told us what they want. Second, I'm shocked to hear the deputy county executive say it's a false narrative to suggest we can't do more on poverty and then say, well, we actually have done more on poverty. Which is it? What I'm hearing tonight is that the administration is mad they're being held accountable and absolutely refuses to acknowledge that there are people struggling and we can do more and we can do better. This is not about you.
Excuse me, Legislator Barnhart.
Hey.
Excuse me, Legislator,
Yes.
in the gallery, if you are not respectful, we're gonna have to ask you to leave. Thank you.
Thank
ahead.
you. Today, the US Census released new data showing that the national child poverty rate more than doubled between 2021 and 2022. And that's because Congress took away pandemic relief, including the expanded child tax credit. We can't wait for Congress to act, and we can't wait for the state legislature to act, although I agree with Commissioner Wright. We got to try to make them do so. There are municipalities around the country and in New York State that are doing innovative things to address poverty. Even the city of Rochester is doing innovative things that we aren't doing. The false narrative is saying we can't do anything else. Well, if we can't, then a lot of other places are breaking the law. But in Monroe County, we have not been able to move the needle on poverty, where nearly half of Rochester's children experience poverty. And we are taking $1.9 million away from human services. Another false narrative, taking money from one place and moving it to another. That actually is a cut. We're putting that money mostly towards parks, the zoo, and golf courses. People had their facts straight about that. I'm almost done. The administration says this is routine, that we've done this before, that human services is all set. But you see, safety net caseloads came in lower than expected, so we'll have $4 million by the end of the year extra here. And they've said we're meeting our legal obligations. These funds aren't needed anymore in human services. But tell that to the person who emailed me saying her son was on the phone for 4 hours trying to check in on his 3-week-old food stamp application. Tell that to the social workers who say they have hundreds of unprocessed applications for benefits. When I asked the administration for the exact number of the backlog, they didn't give it to me. Tell that to the mom and kids who had to sleep in their car on the first night of school. That happened because they had the misfortune of calling the human services line after hours. And I'm sure if you ask 100 people what we should do with this $1.9 million, you'd get 100. I'm almost done. I'm literally almost done. You know,
Is Legislator Barnhart explaining her vote as a
I
general?
understand. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't
She
say
did
that.
not state that, nor did she have a question to the administration.
That wasn't clear. Now it's clear. And I'm almost, and I am wrapping up here. I know this is hard to listen to, but you know, and if you asked a lot of people what to do with this $1.9 million, you get a lot of different answers related to human services, but no one's going to say use it for parks and golf courses. No one would say everything is fine and we don't need this money in human services. And we may have done things this way in the past, but I'm not going to be complicit in doing this way in the future. So I will be voting no. And I urge the administration to try new and innovative things in the 2024 budget to address poverty in Monroe County.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead, Legislator Roman.
I'd like to explain my vote. I believe it's the responsibility of elected officials to ethically share information. Though I don't have to, I feel like I must publicly apologize to the community for the behavior of my colleagues because I keep seeing partial information, deleted information shared by legislators. And that is irresponsible, unethical behavior that I personally believe should be or could be censured. In contrast to this uncollaborative, unsettling behavior, I have spent hours understanding the allocations we are discussing today. These allocations are not tied to overtime, nor will they affect safety net programming. It is my understanding, as was just shared, that there will still be an underutilization of safety net dollars even after this transfer of appropriations. This transfer of allocations will have no effect on housing, and if these allocations stay where they currently are, they will go completely unutilized. The reality is that they will go unspent. So I vote in the affirmative because I understand what is happening here. I've done the work to understand what I am voting on. In my opinion, I am voting so that resources be used this year instead of unused. We can, in fact, advocate for changes for eligibility and safety net, for example. For this and many other reasons, I am voting in the affirmative.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead, Legislator Brew.
Madam President, I'd like to explain my vote if I may. I think as we heard from Commissioner Wright tonight, and I've gotten to know Commissioner Wright over my years serving as a legislature, that there isn't any one person that has any degree of passion for the work she does and the people that she serves. We saw that in her responses tonight. And I can't think of a better commissioner to be serving the county of Monroe, because she certainly does wear her job responsibility and the people that she serves on her sleeve. So I commend her for that. And I also would think that, knowing the type of person that Commissioner Wright is, if she thought for 1 minute there was going to be monies that were not going to be provided to her department to be transferred out, she would be knocking on County Executive Bellow's door the very next morning and telling him where, the bear did what, right? So it's my privilege and my honor to be able to work with Commissioner Wright. And I do applaud her in the work that she does every day for everybody in this community. So thank you.
Is there any, go ahead, Legislator.
I'd like to explain my vote as well. I share the concern and the moral outrage that our speakers shared with us this evening. Society. Thank the administration for the countless hours you have spent explaining a variety of topics related to this referral, related to sanctions, related to housing. And I look forward to continuing those conversations in weeks to come. I spent this morning reading the email we all received from the Children's Agenda. And I'll note that they were analyzing the housing insecurity that is significantly a problem in the city of Rochester, and that their policy requests are all related to state funding. Reason for that: asked for our help as county colleagues. I've offered my help, lobby our state government for the appropriate increases in dollars so that the county can allocate that money. But the state has to change first. And finally, I just want to make it clear that there is no Monroe housing plan in front of this body this evening. And while I share that the housing plan has some great ideas, what we are legally permitted to do is still unclear to me. And I look forward, I thank the administration for agreeing to some time to sit down to discuss the plan, and I look forward to those conversations in the coming week. I will be voting yes for the transfer.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Live in one of the most distressed.
Are you explaining your vote? I'm sorry.
I live in one of the most distressed districts in the county. I see homelessness day in. Right, I also was born in poverty, was facing homelessness. This is personal to me too. They're crying for help, and it's our obligation there for them, to advocate for them. No one is saying that we're doing without. What we're saying is we have to do more. If we have the resources to do more, or we'll talk about moral obligation, it's the right thing to do. They're responsible for every member, every citizen in Monroe County, and that includes the homeless population. They are people too.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brew. Mr. Brew votes yes. Ms. Roman. Ms. Roman votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer. Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines votes yes. Mr. Blankley. Mr. Blankley votes yes. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess votes no. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Delahanty. Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman. I'm sorry? No. Ms. Delvecchio Hoffman votes no. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier votes no. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman votes yes. Mr. Hebert. Mr. Hebert votes yes. Ms. Hughes Smith. Ms. Hughes Smith votes yes. Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns votes yes. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller votes yes. Mr. Long. Mr. Long votes yes. Mr. Mafucci. Mr. Mafucci votes yes. Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe votes yes. Mr. Milne.
Yes.
Mr. Milne votes yes. Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris votes yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor votes yes. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Ms. Vasquez Simmons votes no. Ms. Vecchio is excused. Mr. Udelson. Mr. Udelson votes yes. President Lamar.
No.
President Lamar votes no. 22-6, resolution passes. Item number 21, referral 23-0273, authorizing contract with Nexstar Media for annual digital advertising package for recruitment and community engagement.
Moved by Legislator Smith, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry, Legislator Hebert, did you have something to say? Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Item
Does it-
carries. I'm sorry,
Nay. Legislator Delvecchio Hoffman voted no.
is that the only one?
27-1, resolution passes.
There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
Yes, Madam President, thank you. This honorable body stands adjourned until Tuesday, October 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m.